Hi, everyone, and welcome to Senior Living Live. My name is Mary Kate Spires. Thank you so much for being with us today. One of the most common questions we get asked at the Arbor Company is, how do I pay for senior living? Today, our guest presenter, Lucas, is going to tell you about one option you probably haven't thought about, using your life insurance policy to pay for senior living. Lucas will tell you how it works, and he will be available to answer all of your questions. To be part of the conversation, scroll down to the bottom of your screen, pull up the Q&A box, and type your questions there. I will be happy to read those at the end of today's presentation. Lucas, thank you so much for being here. The webinar is all yours.
Thank you so much for having me and everyone online. My name is Lucas Siegel. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to meet you guys. I'm the CEO of Harbor Life Brokerage and Harbor Life Settlements. And what we do is we help families monetize the liquidity value of their life insurance policy. So most people don't realize that life insurance is an asset, just like a house, just like a car, just like the shirt on your back. People have the right to sell their assets for a fair market price. And that's what we do. And we raise awareness and try and help as many families as we can. So I will share my screen and we'll get started here. Great. So today's session is about using your life insurance to help pay for senior living. So what is a life settlement? A life settlement is the sale of a life insurance policy to a third party for more than the surrender value, but less than the death benefit. So the family essentially receives a lump sum of cash and no longer has to pay the premiums. Just like if you were selling your house, you would get the cash from the sale and you'd no longer have to pay the mortgage. So nearly 70% of seniors will require some sort of assisted living care in their lifetime. But Medicare doesn't cover most of the long-term care, and it's estimated that by 2029, 54% of middle-income seniors will lack the resources they need to pay for long-term care out of pocket. And it's a shame. This is a bit of a crisis that's happening in the United States, where families are scrambling to figure out the best way to pay for care. Even if they have assets, it's also a question of which assets should they liquidate and should they use first, and in what order. Tapping into home equity, tapping into selling of stocks and bonds and pensions, and which ones to do in which order. And most families have no idea that their life insurance policy is a tool that they can use to pay for care. It's estimated that 90% of life insurance policies in the United States are lapsed or surrendered, and the families never paid the death benefit. 90% of all life insurance policies. And less than 10% of those people knew that selling their policy was even an option. And that's our job. Our job is to raise awareness and help families and, really be an advisor to families in understanding what the liquidity value of their policy is. If you go on Zillow, you can type in an address and they'll predict what their house value is. Most people have a general, they can do blue books for their car and get a general idea of what their car is worth. And unfortunately, most people have no idea what their family's life insurance policy is worth. And that's what we specialize in, is being an advisor and helping families understand that value so that they can decide if they want to keep it, sell it, surrender it, or what's best, the best interest of their family. Because surrendering or lapsing a life insurance policy without a settlement evaluation and at least learning what it's worth is an incredible waste of wealth. And that's what we try and prevent and protect families from. And selling life insurance and using life insurance to pay for long-term care, senior living, or any other expenses that families might have is really an underutilized asset. So you sell it, let's say someone sells their policy. What can they do with the money that they receive? And the answer is anything they want. It's your asset and it's your money, and you can do whatever you'd like. People call it life insurance, but if you can't use that money while you're alive, it's not really life insurance, it's death insurance. And so at Harbor Life, we allow families to lock in that equity that they've gotten throughout their lives in life insurance so that they can use that money now while they're alive. So we're essentially putting life back into life insurance policies by allowing families to access that liquidity. And what do they do with it? Some people go on vacations. Some people put money away for their kids or grandkids. We've had families pay for their grandkids' college while they're alive so that they could see the direct impact they were having on their families. Pay off medical bills or any debt, and pay for nursing homes or senior living or long-term care. And the big thing is that a lot of families are tired of paying premiums on their insurance policies to keep the policies active. And when you sell your life insurance policy, you're no longer responsible for paying those premiums. So not only do families get money up front, but they are also unburdened by having to pay the premiums every single month for the policy, which is a great thing. So before we really get into the weeds, I wanted to just kind of back up and talk about life settlements as a transaction to give everyone a good understanding. How does the market work? Well, there's two sides of a transaction if you're selling a life insurance policy. One side represents the insured and represents the family and represents the people on this call. So there could be a life insurance agent involved. On this call, there isn't, because it's just us talking one-on-one. And then there's a broker, and we are a broker. So we represent the families, and we have something called a fiduciary responsibility, which means that we have to represent the family's best interest. And it's our job to do the math and shop the policies and try and get the family the highest amount of money possible. So then on the other side of the transaction would be the investor. The investor is, their goal is to buy the policy that for the best price they can. And our goal on the other side, representing the families, is to sell the policy for the most amount of money humanly possible. So those are the two sides of the transaction. How the market works. So sometimes there's some groups of buyers that try and buy the policies directly. You might see them on TV sometimes. And if you've ever seen real estate and you're driving down the highway and you see the billboards that say like, "We buy ugly houses for cash" or something like that, I associate those buyers with those type of billboards. And really what they're doing is they're trying to buy the policy directly from the family and not get quotes on what the price is, because they want to buy it for the lowest amount humanly possible. So that's one way this transaction's done. Another way is for there to be a broker, which is what we are. And a traditional broker in the life insurance space is you have to go to at least 3 buyers to say that you have shopped it and tried to get a good price for the family. And that's the rule. 3 people. If you shop it to 3 people, you're considered that you shopped it and did a good job in price discovery. But here's the problem. There's way more than 3 buyers. So saying that you represented the family's best interest in getting the best price just by going to 3 people, we don't find that to be enough, and going above and beyond and doing the best that we can for families. So that's why we invented Harbor Life. And we've built an exchange where instead of just going to 3 buyers, we've built an online marketplace that has basically every major institutional investor in the world that buys these policies. And what we do is we pin them up against each other in like a blind bidding auction to drive up the price to the highest price humanly possible. And it's really exciting to watch. We're the first people in the world that have ever done this. This is kind of an example of what it looks like. So when buyers log in, we list the policies and we have all these auctions. So like this one is ending in 5 days, 23 hours, 18 minutes, and 8 seconds. We've had 27 bids so far. It's a $100,000 policy. So this is just an example of how it goes. And all of our investors are institutional investors. They've been vetted by our team. It's people like Berkshire Hathaway and Apollo and, banks and private equity funds and those types of people that we get to go into these auctions. Every time that you sell a life insurance policy through us, we do 100% transparency. So at the end of an auction, a family receives, here's what the bids were, here was the high bid, any fees that are associated with the exchange. You can see the bid history, and we actually show the families even the bid history by the second. So they get a full auditable pro forma of how the auction went and what the high offer was. And this really helps families kind of determine, was this a good deal? Was this not a good deal? And we actually do the math for the families on, okay, if you kept this policy, this is how much additional money you would have to pay into the policy, versus if you sold the policy, this is how much you could get today. And so we kind of help the families weigh the decision on whether it's a good idea to sell or whether it's not. And we're there in support either way. So I wanted to give you guys a couple examples of how we've helped families unlock, hundreds and hundreds of families unlock the value of their life insurance policy, because it really does change lives in a lot of different scenarios. And when you consider that so many people as they age, their concern is running out of money. And so even if a family isn't convinced that they even want to sell the policy, we do free policy valuations, which is really helpful for families to understand what the policy might be worth as circumstances change. So here's Mr. and Mrs. Roberts. Mrs. Roberts came to Harbor Life to sell her husband's insurance policy because Mr. Roberts has been diagnosed with dementia and was rapidly declining. It's kind of a sweet story. They wanted to take a dream vacation together before he moved into a memory care facility. So we sold the policy for them. It was a $250,000 policy. We got them $57,000 cash, and we saved them an additional $108,000 on premiums that they would have paid throughout his life expectancy. This is another example. So this client of ours came to us, and she was in a senior living facility that was very subpar. And the family was deeply concerned about the quality of care that this family, that their grandmother was getting, and a bit disturbed. So we got them, they sold their policy. It was a $500,000 policy, and we sold it for about $250,000. And with that money, the family was able to take the grandmother and take her into a different facility. And the beautiful thing about this story is that her health actually radically improved throughout this process, because they were able to get her better care than she was previously getting. So this video is an example of the first day that she came to the new facility, and you can see the tough shape that she was in. Oh.
All right. Okay, keep your feet still. 1, 2, 3. Oh, God. I think
So not really in great shape. And the family just thought that they couldn't afford better care for her until they met us. So after we sold this policy, we got this video 6 months later after the sale and after moving her into a different facility. And this is a video on them right before Christmas. Same woman, 6 months later, and you can see how her health improved because of the ability to change their living situation.
What are you doing? Good morning. I was not expecting this today. It's Sunday morning. What?
So beautiful stories. This is another example. The Johnson family was a $100,000 policy. We got them $40,000 and we saved them $9,700 in premiums. Mary was trying to help her mother, Nancy, get into a nursing facility. The family planned on selling Nancy's home, but when they got it inspected, they found foundation problems, which made the value plummet. And so she contacted us, and because we were able to sell it, they could make improvements to the home, get a great deal on the home, and pay for the care that she needed. So what types of policies and who works for a life settlement? Generally, people should be over the age of 75 or have serious health impairments. And they should have a life insurance policy worth at least $100,000 in death benefit that's more than 2 years old. Universal life, variable life, convertible term. There's all sorts of policies we can look at, and we do the underwriting for the families to give you guys a good idea of what it's worth. How much can I get for my policy? That really ranges on the death benefit, the policy type, age, gender, life expectancy, and premiums. But the good news is we do the work for you, and we work for you and the family to figure out what the policy might be worth. And we give every family that we work with a free valuation where we run the math with you guys. And we say, okay, what's this policy worth? What could be possible, depending on the health of the insured. And then we do a mathematical calculation where we say, okay, here's the death benefit. Here's the cash surrender value. What's the policy worth if you sold it? What's the policy worth if you kept it? And what's the policy worth if you surrendered it? And what is the best option for the family so that the family can make the decision? It's basically like a free appraisal, just like you'd get an appraisal on your house. So how can you work with us, and how can we support you guys? Well, here's our phone number. It's 1-800-694-0006 to speak with a representative. We've got a questionnaire. If you go to harborlifesettlements.com, once again, it's harborlifesettlements.com. You can just fill out a form and we'll get back to you. And we've got a 3-page application, and we go and do all the underwriting for the families to help them make the best decision possible. So I see some questions popping up. So I'm going to go to the Q&A. One of them is, from William. He said, what is the difference between settlement and lapsing of the life insurance policy? Great question, William. So lapsing a life insurance policy is a lot like foreclosing on a house, where if you don't want to keep paying the premiums, you stop paying the premiums, the policy goes into grace and it's lapsed. So it's a lot like a foreclosure of a house versus a life settlement would be like selling your house instead of getting it foreclosed on. And, most people, if you've got the option of should I sell my house or should I foreclose on it with the bank, it's a no-brainer to sell the house. And so that's what we do. And we try and get the people the most amount of money possible. Oh, and he just said surrendering and lapsing. So surrendering a policy versus lapsing a policy, there's something in there, and it's kind of a misleading term in a lot of life insurance policies. It's called the cash value or the cash surrender value. And when most people see cash value in a policy, they think this is what the policy's worth in cash. But it's actually not always, because a life settlement, you can sell a life insurance policy for sometimes the average is 4 to 12 times the amount of cash value that's in a policy. So what cash value really means when you look at your policy is what the insurance company would give you in cash to throw it away. And surrendering, so that is surrendering the policy. Lapsing the policy would be you've burned through all your cash surrender value and it just goes away. So Dave asked a question: for how long do the bids by the investors remain valid? How much time does the family have to decide? Really good question, Dave. So most of our hard offers are valid for 3 weeks for a family to decide. But just know that it's a opportunity that we walk you through every step of the way. And so before we even throw it up on the auction, we'll show you how we think it's going to do and how we think it's looking to decide whether this is the right option for you guys. And then even when you decide and say, yes, I'd like to sell this, and let's say you even sign the paperwork and you get a check in the mail, okay? There's something called a rescission period. And that is, it's different depending on the state that you're in. But even after you've been paid by the fund, there's typically a 2-week period, which is a period to change your mind. And then at the end of that 2-week period, even after you've been paid, then it's fine. But we underwrite policies all day, every day, just to give families a good idea of what it might be worth. And then it's up to them. So does the investor get William asked, does the investor get the full death benefit when the insured passes? So yes, William, in most cases they do if they buy the whole policy. Sometimes we sell policies with something called a retained death benefit or an RDB, where a family, let's say it's a $3 million policy, and the family sells $2 million of the death benefit and keeps $1 million of the death benefit. So that's an option. We don't recommend it typically because it lowers, not all funds are willing to do RDBs. So it lowers the amount of pool of buyers that are willing to take it. But we do retain death benefits all the time where families only sell a portion of the policy. William asks, what's your commission? So life settlements, the industry typically goes, up to 30% commission. Our average is 17% commission. And with the auction and the way that we underwrite the policy, we eat all the costs of the underwriting. And on top of that, it's up to you guys. So if we don't get the results that the family wants, you don't have to take the offer and you don't have to accept it. And our auction is on average historically about 50% higher bids than the industry average. So it doesn't hurt families just to check it out and see what the policy's worth. Great questions, guys. And we're always 100% transparent on our fees. And to underwrite a policy and look at a policy, it's free and there's no risk and no obligation. So, we work for families all the time just to figure out what a policy might be worth and see if it's a good decision. Do we have any other questions? Are there any requirements to update wills or estate documents if you accept a settlement? Sometimes, it really depends on the estate attorneys and what they say. We have people amend trusts and we have some people that don't. It's really up to the estate attorney and the family to discuss. We can't give legal advice on that. And yeah, Dave, you can totally get a copy of the presentation. Absolutely. It's been an honor being here with you guys. And just know, this is our phone number. Give us a call. We've got a team of really dedicated people that love to serve and love to help families. And we want to be an advocate for you guys. And considering so many people don't even know that their life insurance policies are worth anything, it can be a really beautiful liquidity tool that helps a lot of families. And we love what we do and we're super passionate about it. And I really, really, really appreciate you guys. So thank you, William, for the compliment. And Letha, we will send out a copy of this presentation. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Lucas. And yes, we will send out a recording of this presentation and the presentation tomorrow. And also the recording will be available on our website at seniorlivinglive.com. Lucas, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. For everyone else, if you are looking to learn more about senior living, like I said, you can go to our website at seniorlivinglive.com and get tons more educational content just like this one. But for now, we will see you guys off and have a great night.